What if I told you that a $500 purchase could cost you $2,500 over 5 years? That's not a typo, it's the hidden math behind a typical credit card balance. Credit cards feel like a magic wand. One swipe, instant gratification, and the bill appears months later. Most people assume the price is the sticker amount, then a small interest charge if they forget to pay it off. The reality is a maze of compounding interest, hidden fees, and missed opportunities that can turn a modest purchase into a financial time bomb. In the next few minutes, we'll peel back the layers, crunch real numbers, and watch how quickly debt can snowball when you carry a balance. Imagine a college graduate named Maya. She lands her first full-time job, earns $3,200 a month, and decides to celebrate with a $1,200 vacation. She charges it to her new rewards card, which offers 0% introductory APRA for 3 months, then jumps to a 22% annual percentage rate. Maya thinks, I'll pay it off before the promo ends. She pays $400 each month for the first 3 months, then the rate kicks in. How much does that $1,200 really cost her? Let's walk through the numbers step by step, because the answer will surprise you. First, we need to understand how credit card interest works. Unlike a simple loan where interest is calculated on the original principal, credit cards use a method called average daily balance. Every day, the issuer looks at how much you owe, adds that day's interest, and carries it forward. The APRA is an annual figure, but the daily rate is APRA divided by 365. For a 22% APRA, the daily rate is about 0.0603%. That tiny fraction looks harmless, but it compounds every single day. Over a year, the effect is far more than just 22% because each day's interest adds to the principal for the next day's calculation. Let's illustrate with Mia's scenario after the introductory period. She still owes $0 after 3 months because she paid $1,200 in full. In this case, the interest never kicks in, and the vacation truly cost $1,200. But what if she had only managed $300 in the first 3 months, leaving $900 to carry into the 22% APRA? The daily rate of 0.0603% applied to $900 means roughly $0.54 of interest each day. Multiply that by 30 days, and you're looking at $16.20 in a single month, even before any new purchases. In 12 months, that $900 can balloon to about $1,150, adding $250 in pure interest. That's a 28% increase, not the advertised 22%, because of daily compounding. Now, let's add the hidden fees that most people ignore. Late payment fees can be as high as $40 per missed deadline. Over-limit fees, though less common now, can still appear if you exceed your credit line by a small amount. Cash advance fees are especially brutal, usually 3% of the amount plus a higher APRA that can start at 25% and compound daily from the moment you withdraw. If Maya needed cash for an emergency and took a $200 cash advance, she'd instantly be hit with a $6 fee, and that $206 would start accruing interest at, say, 26% APRA. In just 6 months, that $206 could turn into $236, adding $30 of interest on top of the fee. Opportunity loss is the most insidious component because it's invisible on any statement. Every dollar you leave on a credit card balance is a dollar you're not investing, saving, or using to pay down higher interest debt. If you could have placed that $1,200 into a high-yield savings account earning 2% annual interest, you'd earn $24 over a year. That seems small, but compare it to the $250 you lose to interest on the same amount. The net loss isn't $226. It's $274 when you factor in the foregone earnings. For larger balances, the gap widens dramatically. Consider a family of 4, the Carters, who carry a $5,000 balance on a card with a 20% APRA. They make the minimum payment each month, which is typically 2% of the balance or $50, whichever is higher. At $50 per month, they're paying $600 a year in payments, but only a fraction of that chips away at the principal. In the first month, interest on $5,000 at 20% APRA is roughly $83.33 daily rate of about 0.0548%. So the $50 payment doesn't even cover the interest, meaning the balance actually grows by $33.33 after the first month. If they continue this pattern, the balance will keep rising despite their payments. Within a year, they could be staring at a $5,600 balance, and after 5 years, the debt could exceed $9,000. That's the snowball effect in full force. Let's break down the math for a $5,000 balance with a 20% APRA, paying only the minimum of 2% each month. In month 1, the interest is $83.33, payment $100, $102% of $5,000, principal reduction $16.67, new balance $5,016.67. Month 2 interest rises to $84.61 because the balance grew, payment stays at $100, principal reduction $15.39, new balance $5,032.06. This pattern repeats, and each month the portion of the payment that actually reduces the principal shrinks. By month 12, the payment is still $100, but interest has climbed to about $90, leaving only $10 to chip away at the debt. After 12 months, the balance is roughly $5,300. The Carter family will have paid $1,200 in total, but only $200 of that will have reduced the principal. The rest simply covered interest and the compounding effect. Now imagine they decide to add a $2,000 purchase for a home renovation, increasing the balance to $7,300. The interest each month jumps proportionally, and the minimum payment rises to $146, 2% of $7,300. Even though they're paying more, the percentage of the payment that reduces the principal stays roughly the same, and the overall debt trajectory accelerates. In 3 years, they could be paying $4,500 in total while still owing $6,500. The debt becomes a revolving hamster wheel, draining disposable income that could have gone towards savings, education, or retirement. What about a high-risk scenario carrying a $10,000 balance on a card with a 24% APRA? This is the kind of debt that can cripple a middle-class household. The daily rate is about 0.0658%, which translates to roughly $17.50 in interest each day. That's $525 a month in interest alone if the balance stays at $10,000. If the borrower makes the minimum payment of $200, 2% of $10,000, they're barely covering the interest, and the principal actually grows by $325 each month. In a year, the debt swells to $13,300, and the monthly interest climbs to $698. The borrower is now forced to allocate a larger chunk of their paycheck just to stay afloat, leaving less for essentials. Let's pause for a moment. Did you know that the average credit card holder in the United States carries a balance of $5,315 according to recent Federal Reserve data? More strikingly, the average APRA across all cards sits at 21.5%. That combination means the typical American is paying roughly $900 a year in interest on that average balance, even if they only make the minimum payment. That's the cost of living on credit alone, money that could have funded a down payment on a house, a college tuition, or a comfortable retirement. Now, let's talk about the concept of opportunity loss in a more vivid way. Imagine you have $5,000 sitting on a credit card balance. Instead of letting it sit there, you could invest it in a diversified stock market index that historically returns about 7% per year after inflation. Over a decade, that $5,000 could grow to roughly $9,800, almost doubling. Meanwhile, the credit card interest at 20% erodes the balance, turning it into $2,500 after 10 years if you only make the minimum payment. The net difference between where you could be and where you'll end up is more than $7,000. That's not just lost interest. It's a lost opportunity to build wealth, to secure a future, to achieve financial independence. Let's examine a concrete scenario with numbers that hit close to home. Sarah, a freelance graphic designer, earns $4,000 a month. She carries a $3,000 balance on a card with a 19% APRA. She decides to invest $500 each month into a retirement account that earns an average of 6% annually. At the same time, she pays the minimum payment of $60 on her credit card. In the first year, her credit card balance grows to about $3,250 due to interest, while her retirement account grows to roughly $6,200 thanks to contributions and compound growth. By the end of 5 years, her credit card debt could be $4,100, while her retirement savings could exceed $45,000. The contrast is stark. A modest, disciplined investment plan outpaces the cost of debt by a wide margin. What if Sarah flips the script and directs the $500 monthly contribution toward paying down the credit card instead? She would eliminate the debt in about 6 months, saving roughly $500 in interest. However, she would also miss out on the compounding growth of the retirement account, losing potentially $20,000 in future earnings over the same 5-year horizon. This illustrates the trade-off between debt repayment and wealth building. The optimal path often involves a hybrid approach. Aggressively pay down high-interest debt while maintaining a minimum level of investment to capture compounding returns. Now let's talk about the snowball effect in a more visual way, even though we're only using words. Picture a small snowball at the top of a hill. It starts as a tiny sphere easy to push. As it rolls downhill, it gathers more snow, gaining mass and speed. By the time it reaches the bottom, it's a massive, unstoppable force. Credit card debt behaves the same way. A $500 balance might seem negligible, but if you only make the minimum payment, interest adds to the principal, making the next month's interest larger. The balance grows, the interest grows, and the required payment to make a dent in the principal grows as well. The debt accelerates like that snowball, turning a manageable amount into an overwhelming burden. Consider a real-world example. A recent graduate named Alex took out a $2,000 personal loan to cover moving expenses and then transferred the balance to a credit card offering a 0% promotional rate for 6 months, followed by 23% APRA. Alex paid $200 per month for the first 6 months, clearing the balance before the promo ended, and saved $460 in interest. However, a friend, Jamie, also had $2,000 in moving costs, but chose to keep the balance on a card with a standard 23% APRA. Jamie made only the $50 minimum payment each month. After 6 months, Jamie's balance had risen to $2,200, and the interest accrued over the year would total roughly $460, exactly the amount Alex saved by being strategic. The lesson is clear. Timing and payment size matter dramatically. Let's dig into the mathematics of a what-if scenario that many people overlook. The cost of a $1,000 balance carried for just 18 months at a 20% APRA, with only the minimum payment of 2% each month. The first month's interest is about $16.67, and the $20 minimum payment reduces the balance by a mere $3.33. After 18 months, the balance would be roughly $1,150, meaning you've paid $360 in total but only reduced the debt by $150. The extra $210 is pure interest. If you had paid an additional $50 each month, the balance would be cleared in about 9 months, saving roughly $100 in interest. Small changes in payment behavior produce outsized results. Now, let's examine the psychological side of debt. The mental accounting bias leads many people to treat credit card balances as separate from other financial obligations. They might think, I'll pay it off later because the payment isn't due immediately. This postponement creates a false sense of security. Moreover, the present bias makes the immediate pleasure of a purchase outweigh the future pain of paying interest. The brain's reward circuitry lights up at the moment of a swipe, while the pain of interest is delayed, often invisible on the statement until months later. Understanding these biases can help you break the cycle before it spirals. One retention bump. Did you know that the average credit card user pays $1,100 in interest each year? That's enough to buy a new laptop, a week-long vacation, or a solid emergency fund. Yet most people never see that number on their statement because it's folded into the balance. Another retention bump. Imagine you could eliminate $500 of interest each year simply by paying $50 more per month. That extra $50 is the same amount you might spend on a coffee habit. Which would you rather lose, your morning caffeine fix or a $500 of future wealth? And a third retention bump. If you were to invest $500 a month at a 7% return, you'd have over $100,000 in 20 years. If you instead let that $500 go toward a credit card at 20% APRA, you'd owe over $30,000 more than you started with after the same period. The difference isn't just a few $100s, it's a life-changing sum. Now let's outline practical steps to break the cycle. First, always aim to pay more than the minimum. Even an extra $20 a month can shave months off the repayment schedule and save hundreds in interest. Second, prioritize debts by APRA. Focusing on the highest rate first while making minimum payments on the others, a strategy known as the avalanche method. Third, consider a balance transfer to a 0% introductory card, but be mindful of transfer fees, usually 3% of the amount, and the deadline when the promotional rate ends. Fourth, automate payments to avoid late fees, which can instantly add $35 to $40 to your balance and reset your interest accrual. Fifth, track your spending meticulously. Knowing exactly where every dollar goes helps you find the extra cash needed to accelerate debt repayment. A surprising twist emerges when you compare the cost of debt to the cost of not having a credit card at all. Some argue that the best way to avoid interest is to never carry a balance. However, responsible use of a credit card can build a strong credit score, unlocking lower mortgage rates, better insurance premiums, and even higher job prospects. The key is discipline. Treat the card as a tool, not a safety net. Use it for recurring expenses you can pay off each month: groceries, gas, utilities, and reap the rewards of points and cash back without incurring interest. Let's run a final thought experiment. Suppose you have a $3,000 balance at 21% APRA. You could either pay $150 per month and eliminate the debt in about 22 months, paying $1,200 in total interest, or B, keep the balance and invest $150 per month in an index fund at 7% return. After 22 months, option A leaves you debt-free, while option B yields roughly $3,300 in investment value but still carries the $3,000 debt, plus $1,200 in interest, leaving you $900 in the red. The combined scenario, pay $100 toward the debt and invest $50 might be the sweet spot, reducing interest while still capturing investment growth. The math shows that the exact split depends on your APR versus expected investment return, but the principle remains. The higher the debt interest, the more you should prioritize paying it down. Finally, let's bring it full circle with a